Nope, not a time warp. We got 2-3 inches of wet, heavy, almost powdery snow. And it's currently like 40 something degrees out, so my George Costanza hat and insulated flannel, and I'm fine. So, doing some cleaning at home today, taking some shredded papers to the compost, checking on the chickens. Say hi, chickens. They're not very talkative. Anyways, so let's check out, give you guys an update as to what is happening here with the homestead slash farm. So you can see those stakes sticking out of the ground. That is 2 rows of potatoes that I planted in the last week. They're about 50 feet long, simple single rows. Trying to keep everything as simple as possible this first year. Get more intricate and detailed as I go along. But yeah, here's a better view. Right here, you can see the 2 of them. And yeah, so over that side there, that other hill is where that field is gonna end. And not sure how big or extensive I'm gonna make this first year. Once I get beds in, once certain things establish themselves, makes it easier in the spring and the following years. So, looking forward to that. So, I recently had a fiasco with Amazon, not necessarily Amazon, more UPS. Is this a Martin story? I think this is a Martin story. So, I ordered a bundle of books from Amazon. My wife ordered a few things, and we were having 3 packages delivered. And the day, and somehow all of them were supposed to be delivered on the same day. Again, I think that was more of UPS than Amazon's choosing. But my wife got a notification that her package was stuck in customs. And she was like, okay, that doesn't really make any sense, because the last time she was notified about it, it was like being delivered. And then the same day, I got a message stating that both of my packages were on hold at UPS, and I had to contact them. So I did, and used the old phone number from when I worked for them not that long ago. Got a hold of the manager, and he was like, yeah, couldn't find the address, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, is our normal driver on vacation or something? He was on vacation. So I was like, I don't get it. The address is on the mailbox. For whatever reason, he could not find our house. And so I said, can I just stop there and pick the stuff up? He was like, yeah, sure, it'll be here. So I get there, and 2 out of the 3 packages were there. And the third one was, for some reason, sent back, and they never really explained sent back to where or whom. And a couple days went by. I was like curious as to like what's going on. So I go on to Amazon, who, by the way, never sent me a notification that this thing was delivered. And it stated that it had been delivered Friday. I was looking it up on Sunday, and they sent it to Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is not the address on the package. The other item was a book that I had ordered, written by a friend of mine, and he's kind of curious as to what people think of his book, and I was like, hey, I'd give you a review. I would read it, but for some reason I'm unable to get my hands on it because this is what's going on. So he calls Amazon and he's like, tells them the story, uh, gives them a few pieces of information, and next thing I know, I'm getting a refund. So I don't know. Maybe Martin should be talking to this guy because apparently when he makes a phone call, shit happens. All right. So regarding the garden, things I wish I would have done differently. Um, well, I can tell you while putting those 2 rows in, really wish I would have bought a rototiller, but thinking about that kind of undermines the whole point of the collapse experiment, because after all, what would I be doing without gasoline, electricity? So I can always wish I had better tools, and there's always going to be better tools. I could get a rototiller, and then I'm going to be thinking to myself, why didn't I just get the tractor or the 4-wheeler with the plow attachment on the end? Or why didn't I get this? Why didn't I get that? So that's always going to be a conundrum. And I think the best thing to do under the circumstances is to stick with hand-powered manual tools. Because like I did with the original experiment years ago, God, that was what, like 2012, 2013, growing food in my backyard and seeing how much I could produce and grow, and how much I could sustain myself with what I grew. Again, different circumstances. I had limited space. I never even used the entire backyard. But it's not just me anymore. It's 4 people. And I have this feeling with a lot of these forecasts coming out. I'm not even going to call them predictions. It's more, it has to do with where things are heading. I was just listening to a report today where they were talking about the national debt. And, it was only a few years ago where they were saying that 24 trillion, which is roughly about 100% of GDP, there's no turning back. Unless we start dealing with the national debt before or at that point, the federal government, the economy, the US dollar is fundamentally screwed. And we are at, okay, so the debt clock is saying 28 trillion, but we just added another 5 in less than a year. So I'm thinking as of right now, the national debt clock is just not accurate, because we're at 30 or above. And that is, I believe we're at like 100 and somewhere between 130 and 150% of GDP with the national debt. And those kind of numbers, unsustainable. it really sets up everyone for, these are some really fresh deer tracks. Like, this deer was not here that long ago because a lot of the snow has already melted. So, yeah. We're at a point where there's really no making up for the national debt. And there's two scenarios. Either the federal government defaults on their loans, which drops the credit rating, which again drops the value of the dollar, because if you don't have a government that can back the dollar that's dependable, it really has no value whatsoever. Then there is scenario 2, which is they just keep printing money, devaluing all the dollar, what's in your bank account, what you're getting in your paycheck, and it's just continuously worth less than it was before. The price of everything goes up. It accounts for, it would be comparable to like Russia circa when was that? 91, when the wall fell. The USSR was dismantled. The Soviet Union just completely imploded on itself. And overall, it's just either way that the federal government goes on this. And what really pisses me off is the fact that every year the budget goes up. We had the Trump tax cut, which, yeah, you know, I'm not going to complain that he cut taxes, okay? Because the thing is, the government, just like any household, should be responsible and maybe cut their spending on things that they don't need anymore. But every time you expand government, every time you create some new agency, some new office, they're going to continuously justify their existence. You could have child abuse drop to zero, and they're still going to say, oh, well, now we need to, well, we're investigating how much television kids are watching at home. And that's child abuse, you know. It's like the bar keeps getting lowered so that they keep getting paychecks. The ATF, well, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms are all legal. So why do we have an ATF? The point is, the government's going to continuously keep raising their budgets. They're going to constantly be spending more. You know, they could tax people more, but considering how poorly they spend the money that they already get, and the fact that they have a printing press, the two arguments are going to come head to head. Either they start taxing people more to start paying off the debt, which, by the way, every U.S. citizen, if they were to pay in 1 year what is needed to pay off the national debt, you're looking at roughly $85,000. Who has $85,000 sitting in their bank account? From my understanding, I think it's 70% of the United States cannot handle a $500 unexpected bill because they don't have $500 in their savings account. So I don't know what to tell you except, buy some land, have a few methods of backup when it comes to food, heat, and water. this is the doom and gloom portion of the show. So, going through some trails where there's pine trees. So Michael Burry, for those of you who might be familiar with that name, he was one of the few people who predicted the mortgage crisis of 2008-2009, made a buttload of money hedging against the housing market. The morality behind such things is up for debate. But he saw it coming. He knew that there was no stopping it, no preventing it. He had warned people, pay off your mortgage, sell your house, get out of whatever you can, because that bubble was going to pop, and it sure as hell did. Well, recently, Michael Burry deleted all of his tweets, except for one, basically saying goodbye. No, he did not kill himself. I think he was trying to make a strong point that all the previous things that he had said didn't really matter, that his last tweet was what mattered, which was, we're in a bubble, the stock market is super inflated, that the only thing propping it up right now was all the cheap money that was being printed by the federal government in the form of bonds, handed over to rich people who already had everything that they needed, so they invested in the stock market, which is putting it at record levels. It's all fake. And so he's trying to get that message out. And I have a feeling that just like 2008, nobody is listening. And we're going to look back, and he seems to be a pretty private guy for the most part. So I don't think he's going to become some financial guru. What I think is going to end up happening is history is just going to repeat itself. They're going to be saying, how did this guy know? And why were we so blind to it? Well, it's because it's the same story over and over again. And when you see a bunch of people making money and you want to make a bunch of money too, you throw your chips in, and next thing you know, something else happens, and everybody's broke. Happens every freaking time. So I was just listening to a investor, financial advisor who was on, what is that podcast called? So I was listening to the Peak Prosperity podcast, and this guy, I have to say, there seems to be two different types of financial advisors. One who's happy to take your money, and how do I put it? Take your money, make money on your money, and doesn't really care what they lose because it's not their money. Then there's the other guy who's like, yes, I understand, a lot of people who are making money right now, but here is what we're seeing, and this is what we as an organization are doing, because your friends who are making money right now are not going to have money in the short term. And that's where this guy was coming from. He was saying, look, if you want to do more risk, these are some things that we can do, but we do not recommend doing what your friends are doing, because it's short-sighted, and in the long run, it's going to bite you in the ass. So he was saying the same thing. He was saying that the stock market is inflated, that it's basically the same thing that Michael Burry was saying. I don't know if that guy's popped up again or not, but yeah, his final tweet, I think, it had its, not even 15 minutes, it had its 2 or 3 minutes of, wait, what did that guy say? Isn't he the one from that movie, The Big Short? Well, my stocks are up, so I don't care. That's pretty much what happened. And I look around at this place and I'm happy I'm here. I'm happy I got here. There's still a lot of work to be done, and I have a feeling it's not going to be just the four of us in the next couple years that are living here. And that's the reality. I know my mother-in-law and her husband, financially, they're not in the greatest situation. So I would not be surprised if at some point they had to find a place to stay. And I can't really think of anybody else offhand who might be coming into some type of hardships in the near future, but yeah, I'd have to say it's coming, and it's already here. What am I talking about? Last year, lockdown started. Funny, I'm talking about this on the anniversary. The moment the lockdowns were announced, which historically had never happened before, I knew something else, something big was happening, and it wasn't a virus. We locally here in Michigan, that same winter, last winter, they shut down schools for a couple weeks because of the flu. The flu. Not COVID, although I would not be surprised if it was COVID. Because again, flu-like symptoms, kids aren't really affected by it. But yeah, the schools were shut down. And then all of a sudden they're shutting everything down. And it kept going on for weeks on end. And I knew at that point that these are the early signs of what Michael Ruppert called the collapse. And there's been several other people that referred to it as that. And, currently, I think the Green New Deal, I think the Great Reset, Agenda 2030, I think that all of these are just a desperate attempt to hold on to what we know is disappearing, which is the 20th century way of life. We saw what happened with Texas Power Grid, and what people fail to understand is that the infrastructure of their power grid, 25% of it is the windmills. But that 25% only accounted for 15% of the power on that grid. So, again, this whole renewable energy, we got to switch over to that. Hate to be the one to point this out, but that type of power grid, renewable, with batteries, I guess Elon Musk is sending these new experimental batteries to Texas to help store some of the power that they collect. Those type of power grids would only function if the population was a fraction of what it is now. And I think maybe that should tell us something. Well, just like modern civilization, my battery is running low, and well, now that we've discussed the collapse and probably scared the shit out of anybody who's been paying attention, yeah, I believe it's time to go. So, do what you can, take care, and if you want more information, you can go to thecollapseexperiment.com, and if you're not getting what you want there, I can recommend a few other websites, channels, where hopefully you can get some help in preparing for what is already happening. Till then, keep on typing.